And we're on. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to our short video series on Christian animism. I'm Sean, and I'm here with Patty and Dina, and we're all part of the Christian Animism Council, and we just making these videos to sort of help folks get a bit of a sense of what this Christian animist stuff is and what it looks like in people's lives. So as we get started, why don't we just spend a moment in prayer and just get ourselves centered, and you just have a few deep breaths wherever you are. Just take a few deep breaths. Get yourself grounded. Feel that good, sacred earth beneath your feet. God, you are love. Your body is all creation. You are a tree of life, and you gather your children in love. O love divine, cleanse the thoughts of our hearts by the inspiration of Holy Sophia, Holy Wisdom, that we may perfectly love you and bless the earth in your name. Through Christ, our Lord and our love. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Sean. Thank you, Sean.
Right on. So we're going to turn it over to Dana to get us going here.
All right. Well, I think that prayer definitely set us on the right track. I'd like to know, for my sake and for those who are listening, how you guys incorporate Christian animism into your daily lives. Like if you have any type of regular, daily, weekly type of actions or experiences that you intentionally engage in as part of your spiritual religious practice. So whoever wants to go first, feel free to jump in. I think it's helpful to know.
Yeah. Well, I have some thoughts I can share if you'd like. Is that okay, Patty?
Yep.
Okay. So I was thinking about this for a little bit because the question comes up, and it's come up quite a bit over the past few years as we've been getting into Christian animism. It's like, what does it actually look like? So for me, I realized there's sort of three primary things, and then a new half thing, I'm going to call it, that's just developing. But I mean, so the three sort of categories of things for me, the first is I realized, well, Christian animism practice for me on a daily basis at some level is just living a green lifestyle, right? Like doing my best to live ecologically. You know, we try to have a small carbon footprint. We live in a small house. We tend to garden. We try and get most of our food from a community shared agriculture. You know, we just try and live in a way that is the most respectful in the world of, you know, late consumer capitalism. That we do the best we can to live a green life. Years ago, we used to live on a off the grid farm, and it felt a lot easier to live that lifestyle there. In the middle of a city, it's harder to do that. But that's, for me, that's the first thing, just trying to live that green ethic life, because it provides the foundation for what I think of as the next phase of regular practice, which is tending to the relationships that I develop with the more than human world. So for me, that's like really paying attention to all of the more than human creatures that are just part of my daily life, whether that's our cats in the house here, whether that's the garden out back. Daily, I walk to work, and so I get to walk through some beautiful park area and along a river, which is really important. And I've noticed, you know, because the basis of animism is this sense of knowing that we inhabit a world full of persons, only some of whom are human, right? So for me, it's like just acknowledging those other persons who aren't human, whether it's tree persons or the crow persons in the trees or the bunnies in the park that I see, and just sometimes speaking out loud to them if there's nobody else or no other human people watching. You know, but basically engaging with them as a Christian, right? With compassion, with curiosity, with love, sending blessings, praying for them, and just doing that on a regular basis. And then sometimes I used to do this on a daily basis, but now this is probably more like a weekly. I'd like to get back doing it closer to daily again. I do what I call a formal tithe. And tithing is a particular spiritual exercise that takes about 15 to 20 minutes where I go through a set of spiritual practices to deliberately commune with and communicate with a tree, a plant, another being, a lake, like where I'm actually intentionally trying to have that real conversation. So I don't do that on a daily basis because it takes a bit of time and intentionality. So those are my three things. The fourth thing that's starting to develop in my life is learning more and more about Christian folk magical and healing practices. Things like Braucherei, powwow, some of the Appalachian region and Ozark region healing practices and magical practices. There's a lot of it cunning folk practices from the UK. There's a lot of it that's deeply Christian and sort of involves the whole natural world in ways that are really gentle and creative and magical and enchanting. So that's sort of that's my Christian animist practice in sort of a nutshell. There are other things too, but those are the things I've been thinking of recently. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. How do you spell tithe? I want to look that up and learn more about that.
Yeah, tithe. So it's Kythe.
Okay.
Tithe.
Thank you.
And tithing, there's actually a really good book that's floating around just called Tithing. Yeah, so worth looking into.
Doesn't one of the Madeline L'Engle books talk about it? Is it A Wrinkle in Time?
It is.
Which it's been so long since I read, but
some of her books involve tithing, and it's actually, so the book that I recommend is based on her work. They sort of took that idea and built it into a whole sort of spiritual technology. And they consulted her about it. And she was just really happy that somebody took this idea that was such an important spiritual idea in her novels and actually created sort of a psycho-spiritual technology out of it. So
wow. Maybe we can do a future conversation about that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I just put it in my phone.
Right. Well, first of all, Sean, that's beautiful. I think the way you encapsulate this stuff is so helpful. And I know you've spent a lot of time and you've written about this and all of that. So I really appreciate being able to hear the things that you're doing. I think one of the things that I've been trying to do really deliberately is just to read more. In the Christian Animism group, what was it? Like 2 years ago now, maybe it's 3 years ago now, we read Braiding Sweetgrass together. We read the book Animate Earth by Stefan Harding, which is really wonderful. And then we read Hunting Magic Eels. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Right.
By Richard Beck. Yeah. And so I've just been trying to really learn about understandings of creation as being alive and learn from authors and read novels from they're not from a Christian animism perspective, but from an animist perspective that gives you sort of a window into how different characters navigate the world around them and make meaning out of those things. So I've been trying to really expand my own imagination and my own understanding of how other people understand the world. And then to try to take Robin Wall Kimmerer talking about becoming indigenous to the place where you live. I just really, really appreciate that. Many things about her writing, but I really appreciate that idea that it's important that we come to feel so much a part of the world around us in our immediate vicinity that we care about it enough to live in green ways, like Sean was saying, like to try to reduce our carbon footprint and things like that, because we care about this river and this lake, that kind of watershed discipleship that Ched Myers talks about. Is that a watershed? Did I say watershed? Yeah. Watershed.
No, watershed.
Yeah. It is very important. So that's one of the things that I've really been trying to do, just to learn and to deepen my understanding. I read a book about birch trees while we were living in England. We had this beautiful birch tree in our backyard that I spent a lot of time with and communicated with, and was very, very deep and important relationship for me. And I didn't know a lot about birches. So I read this wonderful book about birches so that I could know her better. So like there's a cottonwood tree in our front yard that I spend time with and communicate with, and I want to find a book like that too. I haven't found that yet, but I would like to. I think one of the other practices that I have really been doing deliberately, especially since I moved back to Chicago and am now in this urban setting, as you were saying, Sean, that it's so different when you're living out in the country where there's less congestion and things like that. It's easier to be connected to your creation around you, to the creation around you. But so since I've been back in Chicago and living in a very urban setting, although we have a tree-lined street that we live on, and our neighborhood has quite a few trees, and the lake is close by, so we have these incredible, beautiful things that are close by to connect with. But so when you walk, you're often walking looking down so that you're not going to trip on a, break in the sidewalk or something like that. So I have been really deliberately trying to look up. And one of the first things that I do when I go out in the morning, if I'm spending time with Grandfather Cottonwood, is that I just look up and just watch the leaves and breathe and start noticing what birds are up there and how are the leaves moving? What color are the leaves? Have there been leaves that are, dropping on the ground after storms? This is a pretty old tree, and after storms, there's quite a few small branches that come down. So just attending to like what that says, looking carefully at the bark, noticing small details. And there's actually about a month ago, there's a little kind of divot in the bark that's maybe about that big. So it's, a pretty substantial size. And there was a tiny little plant growing in that, which absolutely just blew my mind. This, sort of life inside of life, which is really amazing. But I'm also, I ride my bike to work as often as I can. And there's a place that I can ride by a branch of the Chicago River, which is it's not a healthy body of water. There's, there's treated sewage that goes into it. People do kayak on it and things like that. But it goes through this beautiful park. And so now that I've been at this job for a year and have been able to go through and sort of watch the seasons changing and watching these specific trees and watching how it's changing, and just looking up and noticing the blue of the sky against the green of the leaves, which is just such a staggering color combination. While the air quality was so bad earlier this summer, looking into that, like looking at that, even though you want to just like be inside and not, try not to see it too much because it's so devastating and reflecting such devastation further to the north, and then the way it's impacting people close by, like to recognize that grief and be present to that in whatever way is possible. So those are two of the main things that I do on a regular basis. And then what I'd like to do, which I haven't, but when I moved back here last summer, I said, I really, really want to do this. I want to map the trees on my block. And once I get through that, assuming that I do actually do that, then to do that with the plants on the block. It's a little bit, I don't quite know how to make peace with ornamentals. Like I know that there's a whole bunch of trees that have been planted because of their, specific horticultural beauty that are and that is okay. But there's some part of connecting. I'm not sure how to process that. Some of these things are from far, far away, and they don't actually, they're not native here. And so, of course, you want to be welcoming and hospitable to every living thing that is here, the skunks and the possums and the, everything. But I find that that's something about that feels uncomfortable. And I want to kind of lean into that and think more about that, sort of where aesthetics and standards of, what constitutes a good manicured front lawn and curb appeal and that sort of thing, along with these are our neighbors too. And so just kind of figuring out how to navigate the realities of what happens living in cities or suburbia or, any place that's been cultivated and often over cultivated. So how about you, Dina?
Well, thank you for sharing that. I have some thoughts. You've triggered some thoughts that I'd like to share with you later, but I just want to digest what you said. It was very meaningful. But I will digest at a later date. So what do I do? Well, I'll tell you one thing. We garden here. We have a small garden, and we grow kale and tomatoes and lavender and lady's mantle and strawberries. And the strawberries aren't doing so well. They just are not. And I used to be kind of a gardener that had a goal in mind. Now, I didn't get upset and shake my fist at the heavens if things didn't go well, but you garden because you want to, if you garden, produce, you'd like to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And the strawberries aren't going so well. They grow, but they get eaten or they fall off or they shrivel up. And I was talking to my husband, Jason, about it. And I was like, you know what? The birds are picking at them. You can see that there's little holes and the leaves are gorgeous, but they're being picked at and nibbled. And I was like, we can just grow the strawberries just for them to grow. Whoever wants to eat them, let them eat them. If we don't ever get one, we still have this beautiful foliage. The leaves are gorgeous, but B, we know that somebody's enjoying these. So I'm saying that they're not going well, but they're going well for someone. And, it's kind of like that sense of community with all of the, what did you say? The non-human persons that we're sharing a space with. Yeah. So that's an intentional thing, because in the past I would have been like, oh, I have to figure out what I'm doing wrong. And I got to get some better worm castings. And I have to, and I'm like, you know what? No, someone's eating them and they're enjoying them. So good. So I am going to continue to plant for my neighbors, my four-leggeds and two-leggeds, and winged neighbors. I'm going to plant for them. So that's one way I'm intentionally trying to live my faith, because, the Bible talks so much about, number one, giving all you have to the poor. Well, I'm not necessarily doing that, but I'm letting go of the attachment and just giving it away to someone. And I may not get an immediate, I'm not going to go out and feel like I'm in a Disney movie with the birds landing on me. That's all ego and all that. It's really just giving to someone else, giving into, I hate to say the least of my brethren, because often they seem to have a richer experience than I do, but giving and not worrying about being on the receiving end. So that's one thing. And then I think another is actually being more intentional about being out with my faith. Even doing this video, putting my full name in the window, the Zoom window, and just publicly speaking about my faith. That's a big deal for me to have, for someone who's come up in the more traditional Christian church. I had an open-minded family, but sometimes when you grow up in the church, there's a lot of different opinions about something that Sean, as you said, off camera, does not seem to be directly steeped in tradition. You said biblically based, but Christian animism is biblically based. It's so biblical. It's not even funny. But to those that may not see it as okay because it doesn't reflect the more traditional things that we've grown up with, it's not on the side of what's okay or what's not okay. It doesn't fit into that. It's that pagan stuff, as we've heard. No offense to any pagans out there, but the stuff that you hear when you hear the word pagan, it's not positive. And I've learned to embrace, because I realize what a pagan is and what it's not. More importantly, the actual rudimentary definition of it had nothing to do with religion. I believe, Sean, correct? Isn't it just like someone who dwells in
outside the city, right? In
there
the
you
rural
go.
landscape. Yeah.
There you go. So, but see, growing up in my church, oh, that's pagan. That's pagan. It was a slur almost. So to freely embrace all of this and talk about it and be so out and proud with it is huge. And I'm so excited, Sean and Patty, that we're having these conversations. So the other day I was at a church that I'm not a member of, but I'm active in, if that makes sense. And I started talking to a woman there, and we ended up talking about foraging. And she lives in Philadelphia. I live right outside of Philly, but I'm from Philly. And it was so wonderful. I talked to someone else there who's the director of a nature center. And we talked, and we had a very, one-dimensional type of conversation. It was very superficial. She said, oh, I don't get to church as much as I'd like because I have to work. But then when she started talking about work, we circled back to what she said previously. And I said, well, are you really missing church? When you're not in the building on Sundays, are you really missing it? She's like, no. But she wasn't comfortable with saying that because she didn't know where I was. I didn't know where she was, but we took a chance and had that conversation. And once we both admitted, oh my gosh, we can practice our faith in so many different ways. She leads children on nature walks and gets them in touch with, like you said, looking up, looking at the trees. These are kids that might not otherwise have an opportunity to see that the world is bigger than their block, than their neighborhood. Her passion is pulling them out into the world. I mean, come on, go ye therefore and preach the gospel. If that's not a great example of that, I don't know what is. Yeah. So that's a way that I'm more intentionally living my faith. And I think the last way is just walking my dog with space and room to be and to let her be and to see what she has to teach me instead of me hurrying her up because I have somewhere to go. My last dog passed. I had her for 14 years. I was always in a hurry, always in a hurry. She taught me well. She tried to teach me more. I didn't listen. With this go round, I'm definitely more intentional about the conversations we're going to have as we walk, So those are my tangible ways of living my faith right now.
Right on. Wow.
It's so beautiful. I love that about like making space for your dog. And I actually think about, when you see people walking with young children and sometimes like, come on, sort of dragging the kid along. And I had a toddler. I totally get how hard it can be. And if you're needing to be somewhere and that sort of thing, I get that there's a lot more to it than that. But I think often our mindset is, I've got places to go, I've got things to do, get on my time schedule and keep on moving. And there's something really beneficial to take that time and move at somebody else's pace.
Yeah, definitely.
So much, and I'm struck with all the commonalities, even though we're each having very different experiences and we're naming different practices, but I'm hearing like commonalities, especially around relationship, that all of these practices are about cultivating relationship, whether that's with the more than human beings, whether that's with the smoke and the fires and the grieving, whether that's with our faith, whether that's with God, the Spirit, like all of it is about relationship. And so that's, and I'm sure that as this video goes out into the world, I'd love to hear from other people too, what your experiences are with, you might not call it yet Christian animism, but I know so many people are tapped into this current, this green current in their faith. And so it would be great to hear from others too. we're going to be back soon we'll have some more videos, and we're going to continue conversation. I think we're going to talk a little bit about experiencing summer's end in our next conversation. So for now, bye-bye, and we will rejoin again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.